She's going to tell us about her practical experience in livestock production. I have been a beneficiary of that, and I'm sure some of us here have also benefited from our livestock production. If you haven't, after the inaugural lecture, please approach her. Maybe your need for Christmas chicken will be assured. So I'd like to welcome all of you, and I think it's really interesting to hear when in environment and phenotype have been brought into play to help boost our livestock production. So I'd like to please request you to come, settle down, and listen to this erudite scholar. I want to believe that at the end of this inaugural lecture, you will certainly go home with a better understanding about where and how we can all together ensure that there is sustainable supply of livestock in Nigeria, and as part of our effort to address the food security situation in our country. So thank you for your attendance. Please listen and take something home at the end of this inaugural lecture. Thank you.
The chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I will now invite Dr. Emmanuel Basi Efa, the citation reader, to read the citation of the 104th Inaugural Lecturer, Professor Affiong Joseph Henry.
Recording in progress.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, depending on where you're watching this program from. It's my pleasure to stand here this afternoon on the 154th Inaugural Lecture. We're very dear friend, and as I begin to do the honors of unveiling this erudite scholar, let me observe a few protocols. Vice Chancellor, Professor Affiong, Deputy Vice Chancellors, Academic, Research and Linkages, Registrar, the University of Calabar, the Chief Librarian, the Chairman Committee of Deans, our very distinguished 154th Inaugural Lecturer, the immediate family of the lecturer, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, great and great honors. Permit me to stand on existing protocol and let me welcome at this point the 154th Inaugural Lecturer to stand for the reading of her citation. Please clap your hands. Citation of the 154th Inaugural Lecturer, Affiong Joseph Henry, PhD, RS, Professor of Animal Breeding and Genetics. The scriptures say, better is the end of a matter than the beginning. It was Julius Caesar, the Roman general, that said, Veni, vidi, vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. Professor Henry came, she saw, she conquered, and is still conquering. Here's to the legacy of an erudite professor of animal genetics, an excellent teacher, a lover of God, and a seeker after knowledge, Professor Affiong Joseph Henry. Mr. Vice Chancellor, to understand this erudite scholar, let us appreciate her foundations. She was born Affiong Solomon Ekwere to Elder Professor Solomon John Aquere and Deaconess Glory Solomon Aquere of Ikot Eduoneke in Ibionebom, Akpabio State, on 22nd October 1974, as the first among 5 siblings, Dr. Azubike Aquere, Neka Togodo, Asoko Aquere, and Emma Teko. From the early classrooms of the Unical and Uniloran staff schools to the formative halls of Cornelia College in Akpabio State, the blueprint of a disciplined and inquisitive mind was drawn. The spark of her specific passion was ignited in Unical, where she earned her B.A. Greek in Animal Science in 1998. This is where Professor Henry found her calling. For her, it was a puzzle of national importance, improving the genetic potential of Nigeria's livestock for enhanced food security and economic prosperity. Coming to Unical was quite an experience for her, amidst the fears and a trembling heart of what the future might hold. She hoped, prayed, and relentlessly pursued her dream, with some pains and eventually the gains, one of which we are here celebrating today, her inaugural lecture. This spark graduated to a flame during her MSc in Animal Breeding and Genetics in 2005. With deepening focus, she began to see the dance between genotype and phenotype, between the code of life and the tangible traits of animals that sustain our communities. But it was the research that aided her PhD in animal breeding and genetics in 2010 that truly announced the arrival of a formidable and original thinker. Her dissertation, Estimation of genetic and phenotypic parameters of beta and growth traits of grass cutters raised under intensive management, was a masterstroke of practical innovation. Beyond conventional livestock, she focused on the grass cutter, an indigenous animal with immense economic potential and aesthetic appeal for rural and urban farmers alike. This early work embodied the principle that would define her career. Excellence in science must be in service to society. A rise through the ranks from assistant lecturer in 2005 to professor in 2020 was as steady as it was merited. Each promotion a testament to her growing research portfolio, her dedication and effectiveness in the department as well as the classroom. I thought he would clap. But titles alone cannot capture the essence of her contributions. I must add that she is an ardent believer in God, a dedicated teacher of children, women, youths, and much more. She is a life coach extraordinary and an inspiration to many. A scholar's true legacy, however, is often found in their research and the minds they shape. Professor Henry's research profile is both deep and broad. Her research evolved dramatically, embracing the cutting-edge frontiers of molecular genetics and bioinformatics, from measuring body parameters to probing the very building blocks of life. She has looked at phenotypic characterization and molecular analysis of leptin gene in West African dwarf goats and the application of computational algorithms to access the functionality of non-synonymous substitution in oval woman gene in quail. Mr. Vice Chancellor, this evolution from the farmyard to the gene sequence is a mark of a truly modern scientist. Professor Henry delved into genetic diversity of clams using DNA markers, the expression of specific genes in cattle, and the bioinformatic analysis of genetic mutation in pigs and quails. Beyond keeping up with global scientific trends, she is actively contributing to them, ensuring that Nigeria is represented on the global stage of livestock research, as evidenced by her presentations at several international and local conferences. She has over 30 publications in reputable local and international journals and has successfully nurtured the next generation through the supervision of 17 undergraduate and 7 postgraduate students. Professor Henry is on a scholarly mission. She has consistently served as resource person for the NDDC, NADA, CUSO International's U-Lead program. She helped develop technical guidelines of broiler production. Amongst many others, some notable assignments she has delivered on, adding feathers to her cap, are, but not limited to, exams officer, welfare chairman and acting head, Department of Animal Science, University of Calabar, from 2019-2021. Mr. Vice Chancellor, her dedication has not gone unnoticed. Her accolades include the World Bank-funded Innovators of Tomorrow grant in 2010, and very interestingly, Vice Chancellor's Meritorious Service Award for one of the best heads of departments in 2022 session. Beyond the CV, the publications, and the admin role, who is Professor Affiong Henry? She is a mentor, a collaborator, a problem solver who approaches complex challenges with factual data and quiet, determined resolve. She is a registered animal scientist, RAS 197, a proud member of our professional society, and a custodian of the standards and ethics of her field. Professor Henry is a builder, a deaconess, chorister, teacher, and the finance coordinator of the Women's Association in a local assembly of Sanctified Mount Zion Church. You can do that in there. Professor Henry has chaired the Faculty of Agriculture Research Fair Committee for 5 years, within which period the Faculty of Agriculture moved from third and later clinched the second place prize at the last research fair. So today, as we trace the arc of this distinguished career, we see more than a list of achievements. We see a legacy of a trailblazer, of leadership that empowers and elevates, service that bridges the gap between the gown and the town. Please put your hands together for her. Mr. Vice Chancellor, this day is auspicious. Being the 154th Inaugural Lecturer, adding the numbers 1 + 5 + 4 = 10. And today is beautifully presented as the 10th of December. Professor Henry was born on October the 10th month of a year, and 10 signifies a decade. So I can say that this is the completion of a season in her life, and going forward, new vistas are open for her. Professor Henry is married to Mr. Joseph Henry, and their 19-year-old marriage is blessed with 3 wonderful children, Mabel, Solomon, and Joseph David. She was honored by the University of Calabar Staff School as the first alumnus to rise to the enviable rank of professor. She is the pioneer president and first female professor of the Faculty of Agriculture alumni class of 1998, aka Agricolize 98. Great Agricolize. Her class gave an award for the best student in the practical year program of the Faculty of Agriculture. It is therefore with highest esteem and profound admiration that I present to you a scholar, a leader, a mentor, and a national leader. Ladies and gentlemen, as she takes her inaugural lecture in Unlocking Potential, the Interplay of Genes, Environment, and Phenotype in Animal Breeding and Sustainable Livestock Production, please make welcome the 154th Inaugural Lecturer, Professor of Animal Breeding and Genetics, Professor Affiong Joseph Henry, PhD, RNS. Thank you.
The Vice Chancellor, Professor Affiong, all principal officers here present, my family, the citation reader, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to present my inaugural lecture on the topic Unlocking Potential, the interplay of genes, environment, and phenotype in animal breeding and sustainable livestock production. Today, I stand before you all in total humility and awe of God for his extraordinary deeds in my life. I stand here today as the 5th inaugural lecturer in the Department of Animal Science and the 7th in the Faculty of Agriculture, only by the grace of God. These numbers are symbolic for me. By divine interpretation, 5 signifies grace and 7 perfection. For God makes all things perfect in his time. My journey as a scholar has not been a bed of roses, but God has placed great people in my path who stood as angels in human form, guiding me to succeed over the years. I am greatly encouraged by this career choice because through my passion and dedication, it has inspired 3 young adults from my teens church and community to study animal science. All 3 are now graduates, with another one following suit, just being admitted in the University of Calabar in the 2025-2026 academic session. This crowns my joy as a proud animal scientist. I asked my sons what they would like to study in the university in one of our discussions, and to my amazement, both of them said agriculture. I leave this in the hands of the Almighty God, who will guide their hearts and steps to greatness. Today is a dream come true for me. This is because as a master's degree holder, standing at the back of Chinua Achebe Arts Theatre, on April 26, 2005, listening to Professor Ivara Ejemotesu deliver his inaugural lecture on the topic Characterization, Classification, and Management Problems of Major Soil Orders in Nigeria as the 26th inaugural lecturer and the first from the Faculty of Agriculture, I told myself, you must do this someday. Today, 20 years, 7 months, and 13 days after, God has enabled me to fulfill a dream. At this point, permit me to take you through the terrain of animal breeding for sustainable animal production driven by the triad, gene, environment, and phenotype, with the breeder as steward. We will consider how breeders harness this triple bond to shape livestock that are not only productive, but also resilient, efficient, and ethically raised from the molecular blueprints encoded in genes to the visible expression shaped by nutrition, climate, and management. Successful animal breeding is not without challenges, from climate change and scarce resources to the conservation of genetic resources. The animal breeder looks beyond the paddock to the laboratory to ensure a future where animals are productive, environments are safe, and safe animal products are available for human consumption. At this point, let's begin the lecture inspired by science, nurtured by nature, and committed to sustainable animal production. A famous geneticist once wrote, and I quote, "It is not always the magnitude of differences observed between species that must determine specific distinctions, but the constant preservation of those differences in reproduction." I'll be taking us through the following contents as listed here. World population by 2050 has been put at 9.7 billion persons. That's the number of persons we expect to have in the world. As at 2025, world population stands at 8.3 billion, at a growth rate of approximately 25%. What does this translate to in Africa? In Africa, that would be accounting for more than half of this number. And in Nigeria, by 2050, our population would have risen to about 401 million persons at a growth rate of 54%, making Nigeria the third most populous nation globally. From this table by Worldometer in 2025, where 233 countries were assessed on their population in 2025, Nigeria ranked 6th amongst 233 countries. This is quite scary, I must say, because we have a world share of about 2.89 currently and a fertility rate of about 4.3. This brings us to the big question. With this number of persons, the question on most people's minds would be, what will we eat? How do we survive? That brings us to the food question. Food is any substance consumed for nutritional support derived from either plants or animals. For this lecture, we're going to dwell on animals. For animal products to be secured, it has to be available, it has to be sustainable, and it also has to be affordable to be able to meet human needs. However, climate change has brought about significant changes to how animals are raised and also to the quantity and quality of animal products as well. We can see on this slide that anthropogenic activities, which are activities carried out by man, from pharmaceutical companies, agricultural activities, drugs, food industry, and personal care products. All these activities release contaminants into the environment, and these contaminants affect every living organism, which includes animals, not just human beings. The release are in form of harmful gases such as methane, nitrous oxide, carbon dioxide, and ozone into the atmosphere. When this happens, what will be the result? The environment is altered in which animals thrive. It also affects crops, which are the basal feed ingredients to feed our animals. There will also be prevalence of disease-causing organisms, and we'll also have some organisms becoming resistant because of the changes in the environment. So our concern here is that breeding requires that we breed animals adaptable to different environments, while relying on the genetic potential of the different animals for the purpose. Management of animals, however, has evolved and gone beyond the traditional practices where we rely on extensive, semi-intensive, and intensive management, to where we now, farms have adopted climate-smart and precision animal breeding in different climatic zones. Therefore, the consideration of gene, environment, and phenotype as the crux of this lecture is to buttress their relevance in animal breeding and to sustain livestock production. We're going to look at some concepts and terms as it concerns this lecture. The concept of animal breeding. What is animal breeding? Man had already been involved in animal breeding right from time. But the only thing was that human beings did not, at that time, adopt genetic principles. But when you look at what was done, we'll see that indirectly they had adopted these practices. Because man hunted for animals from the wild just using visual appearance, which is the phenotype that we are talking about today. So animal breeding is the application of genetic principles for the purpose of developing new or improving economically desirable traits in farm animals, according to eBay 1998. Therefore, the concept of animal breeding relies on different aspects of science, genetics, physiology, which has to do with the metabolic processes in the animal, nutrition, which has to do with what the animals are fed. Statistics, where the data obtained from breeding experiments or experiments are analyzed and applied to animal breeding. Therefore, the breeder's understanding of the concepts of heritability, repeatability, and correlation in relation to gene action leads to successful animal breeding. Repeatability here has to do with the number of times, considering a trait, that you can actually measure that trait several times over in the life of an animal while it's still alive. And correlation here has to do with the relationship between two traits. When there is a positive relationship between two traits, it means that as you're improving one, you are also automatically improving the other, even if it is not a desired trait by the farmer. We have a diagram here showing animal breeding simply, where we have a superior female and a superior male crossed together to obtain a progeny. The progeny here, we can see, has 50% of traits inherited from either of the parents. That's why we have half of the progeny being blue and the other half appearing as oxblood. To achieve animal breeding, the breeder relies on variation. Variation simply means differences. When on a farm, you go to maybe a goat farm, you're going to see different colors, different sizes. That's what guides the idea of the breeder on which animals to choose. So without variation, there would be no selection and we would not succeed in breeding our animals. So variation stands as the bedrock, and it plays a vital role in selection as a tool to obtain the next productive generation of parents. There are several breeding methods, some of which include crossbreeding, inbreeding, selective breeding, pure bred breeding, and line breeding. All of these are methods that are used to breed our animals. Crossbreeding, like I showed us earlier. Inbreeding is where you have to breed two closely related animals. We have here a three-way crossbreeding, where we have bull of breed A, cow of breed B, producing a progeny, F1, that's the first generation. That animal has 50% each of its parents, crossed with a bull C, referred to as a terminal sire. A terminal sire is a male that is used to cross a female, and then the progeny are just raised and slaughtered for meat. That's why it's referred to as a terminal sire. So we can see that the animal so obtained has 25% each of A and B and 50% of C. The reason is that the relationship between that offspring and its grandparents, that's why it has only taken just 25% of inherited character from either of its grandparents. Over the years, through genomic studies, marker-assisted trait improvement has become applicable in animal breeding. The genetic component is the foundation upon which animal breeding depends for trait improvement and development. Animal genetics can be considered at the population level as quantitative or qualitative traits, and also at the molecular level. When we talk about quantitative and qualitative traits are traits that can be measured and have economic value, whereas qualitative traits are traits like coat color, eye color. Those are qualitative traits. So with genomic studies, it is now possible for farmers to be able to breed their animals, because most of the productive traits show later in the life of an animal. But with genomic selection, marker-assisted selection, it is possible that you can now take information from the DNA of the animal at an earlier stage of life without having to wait till when the animal gets to its productive age before you begin to select the animals for this purpose. In all of this, what controls all these traits that we're talking about are genes. So the gene here is the basic unit of inheritance responsible for the expression of traits, which are transferred from parents to offspring during reproduction. If we look at this whole, we can see the differences amongst us. Sizes, the length of our hair, our color, all of this has to do with the genes that we carry and we have inherited from our parents. So genes are specific segments on the DNA strand occupying fixed positions on a chromosome and directing information needed to produce proteins that regulate various traits. There are basically two processes involved in the manifestation of traits. We have transcription and translation. With transcription, the DNA codes the information through the mRNA, and in the nucleus, that information is now decoded in the cytoplasm with the in the cytoplasm, bring about the production of proteins that bring about the expression of traits. This is what we have here in this diagram. We can see in the nucleus, the DNA, the transcription and the translation processes that brings about the expression of traits in animals. And we have the genetic code, the triple code, codes for the amino acids that bring about gene expression. So genes are not visible to the human eye, but their effects can be observed and measured. We can't see genes, but we can measure our animals and we can take values for the traits. Gene expression largely depends on whether genes are dominant or recessive, which are expressed as desirable or undesirable traits. Traits that are when we say gene is dominant, it means that it appears in generations. When it's recessive, that means it's being masked. Its effect is not being seen. So every animal carries genes that codes providing the blueprint for growth, reproduction, fertility, disease resistance, and production. All the processes within an animal is carried out by genes. Research advances in animal breeding and genetics have carefully applied this knowledge beyond the theory into practice in the field of science to bring about precision and enhance progress through the use of molecular markers. Molecular markers are specific segments that stand as a landmark to detect the presence of a specific genotype or phenotype. Marker-assisted selection and genomic selection are breeding strategies that leverage on molecular markers to detect and select desirable traits for breeding. In India, for example, with the use of genomic selection, buffaloes that are efficient in milk production are now available to the local farmers, such that the farming families now have milk, and they can also sell the milk produced from these animals to make extra income. So this is what genomic selection has been able to help farmers to achieve. The environment. We have looked at the genes, we're looking at the environment. The environment has to do with what concerns the animal. This hall, where we are all seated, is an environment. And each person here will react differently based on the temperature within this hall. So when we talk about environment as it concerns the animal, there are basically two environments. The internal environment, which has to do with what happens within the body of the animal, and the external environment, which has to do with what happens externally to the body of the animal. So the environment functions as a modulator in gene expression. The expression of a trait depends on how much it is governed by the environment. Environmental conditions can alter genetic expression from nutrition, climate, management and social environment, disease environment, and pathogen expression. So what you feed your animals can either suppress the manifestation of the gene. A farmer might get a good animal from a good stock, but because you're not feeding the animal right, the genes will be suppressed. And in climate has to do with productivity, health, and overall well-being of livestock. For example, with the Himalayan rabbits, the gene that controls the color of this rabbit, the gene C, when the temperature is lower, the rabbit appears as white. But when the temperatures are high, color begins to appear at the extremities of the rabbit. So this is so perhaps you want to obtain a rabbit like this, and then you are buying it at the time when the temperature is favorable. You would think that you're buying a white rabbit. But by the time you bring the rabbit to Nigeria, you now begin to notice colors, and then you start looking for a vet doctor. So it's not like that, it's the genes that are responsible for that. And then we look at management and social environment. The environment, as it concerns management, has to do with the pen. If your animals are overcrowded, they cannot carry out physical activities like movements and stretching. So that can also impair their performance. So social stress can suppress immune function, reduce feed intake, impair reproduction, and increase susceptibility to diseases. We can see here on this slide two simple environments. We have the pastoralist, which is a herdsman that move around the place. And we see cattle being raised in a ranch. The results are obvious. We will see what the result, we have already seen what the results will be. So poor management has really affected the way, the progress that we can make with animals. For example, in Nigeria, our cattle, we have here a table that shows Nigerian cattle population by production system. We can see here that majority of our cattle are raised extensively, with only about just 1.1% being raised intensively. So this speaks a lot. Phenotype, which I had earlier said, has to do with physical observable characters. So phenotype here has to do with body weight, height, eye color, litter size, milk yield, and all of that. It's given by simple expression, phenotype by gene, the environment, and an interaction between the genotype and the environment. So physical appearances in animals are attributed to correlation, which I've already explained earlier. Penetrance of a gene, which has to do with the extent to which a gene is expressed. Pleiotropy, which has to do with a situation where one gene controls more than a character. And epistasis, which has to do with an interaction between two non-allelic genes. We can see here different phenotypes of a naked neck chicken, the West African dwarf goat, and the white Fulani. In the course of preparing for this lecture, a friend of mine asked me, Affiong, what will you be talking to us about? And I explained. And fortunately, during that discussion, I talked about the naked neck. He reduced his voice and said, I used to think that that was a demonic chicken. So today, let us know that the naked neck chicken is not a demonic chicken. So the helix, which has to do with the interplay of these three very important factors. The success of animal breeding is captured in this helix. The gene, environment, and phenotype, which are strongly interconnected and dependent on one another. So the relationship is crucial for developing breeding strategies that enhance productivity while maintaining animal welfare, environmental sustainability, and food security in the face of growing global demand for animal products. So each component of this triad is fundamental to the preservation of animal breeds and strains identified for different production purposes. So the quest to increase and sustain animal production must be driven towards eco-friendly environments where animals does not pose a threat to the environment and human existence. So here we have the quest for genotypes adapted to specific environment conditions, especially heat. So in relying on this relationship, it gives us the opportunity to be able to raise animals that are adapted to specific environments and that will be productive as well within the environments that these animals are raised. So without an understanding of this triad, it becomes very difficult for livestock farmers to raise their animals for efficient results. Here we have a simple diagram where we have assisted reproductive techniques was being used. Even when we have the in vitro fertilization, the embryo must adapt to the environment before it can even be deposited in the uterus of the dam. And the uterus too the developed embryo must also be able to survive within that uterus for it to come out as a live animal. So we have then the offspring, which is the phenotype derived from an assisted reproduction. This brings us to the story of sustainable animal production. What does this mean? Sustainable animal production demands continuous growth and transformation of the livestock sector to offer extensive opportunities for improved human nutrition, poverty reduction, food security gains, and agricultural development. Therefore, to sustain animal production is a crucial thing that must guarantee availability and affordability of animal products for the ever-increasing human population. So for sustainable production depends largely on the efficiency of animal breeding, which is achieved by selecting animals with economic viability, environmental accountability, and social responsibility. Genetic selection can enhance efficiency through multiple pathways like improving feed conversion ratio, in reducing maintenance requirements, and increasing productive livestock and improving reproductive efficiency. So animal breeding leverages on genomic breeding, which uses information from the animal's DNA to achieve this, without relying on the traditional methods where we have to cross our animals physically. So animal production will be sustained with the participation of producers at all levels of production in the implementation of any country's livestock master plan. Also, food feed competition must be addressed through adopting novel feed resources, enlarging the feed resource base, and improving feed safety. What do I mean by this? Food feed here means most of the feed ingredients that are used for animals are also being consumed by human beings. So that's where the competition comes in. So which means that we have to rely on alternative feed resources to feed our animals if we must sustain animal production. What has been the trend of animal production in Nigeria? The agri sector is made up of 4 basic components: the crop, livestock, fishery, and the forestry. We can see from these charts that crop production takes about 87.6%, leaving only 8.1% to livestock farming. That speaks a lot. When we look at the, our population, what is expected and what we have now, with how the level of animals we have to sustain our livestock. So the livestock industry, however, even with this, the livestock industry accounts for about 5% of Nigeria's GDP and 17% of its agricultural GDP. But irrespective of that, we can see that right from independence, most of the programs and agency-based interventions have dwelt largely on crop, with little or nothing done as it concerns the livestock sector. So current steps, fortunately, have been taken in Nigeria. In 2023, activities to develop a livestock master plan through the Livestock Productivity and Resilience Support Project in partnership with the International Livestock Research Institute was launched. And in 2024, for the first time, Federal Ministry of Livestock Development, with a mandate to enhance livestock productivity, ensure food security, and drive economic growth, was established. However, there are still serious concerns. 1, low productivity caused by pastoralist system of rearing animals. We can even see that in our local domain, where we have most of our genetic resources, those animals just roam about extensively, fending for themselves. So this becomes a challenge if we must sustain our livestock. Land degradation caused by overgrazing of pasture lands, significant loss of animals due to communal and farmer-herder clash. When those clashes happen, we also lose animals in addition to the human population that we lose. In addition to this, ecosystems are altered because of climate change. Looking at this population of selected livestock in Nigeria as at 2021, we have our cattle at over 21 million. And we have rabbits, 4 million. But even at that, we can't go to our open market and find rabbit meat to buy. Have you bought rabbit meat before in the open market? So it shouldn't be like that. If we must sustain livestock, it has to cut across all the animal, conventional and unconventional animals. To sustain livestock, we have to look at our indigenous animals if we must sustain the livestock sector. So animal genetic resources, what is it like in Nigeria? Animal genetic resources refer to the heritable traits and diversity found in various classes of domestic animals for food and agricultural purposes. So when we say animal genetic resource, it is a systematic and detailed documentation of animal population based on their breed, description data, breeding structure and organization, adaptive environment. This information will guide animal producers on how to breed their animals, how to raise them for different purposes. In 2007, FAO developed and adopted a global plan of action for animal genetic resources. There was a review in 2015 and 2017 because it was observed that many countries had not fully adopted this plan. This plan has within it 23 strategic priorities of action under 4 major categories, which has to do with characterization, sustainable use and development, conservation, policies, institution, and capacity building. The essence of this plan is that there has to be proper documentation of our indigenous livestock. Just a few weeks back, I read in the news that the government has come up with a plan to take inventory of our animals, and I said, well, this is a step in the right direction. I hope that that will be done properly. So the lack of inventory has limited the preservation of our indigenous breeds, while some have become extinct, leading to loss of valuable data. This year, in June, Nigeria launched its National Strategic Agricultural Production National Strategic Plan, Animal Plan for Animal Genetic Resources, alongside the National Advisory Committee to guide the implementation to ensure conservation and sustainable use of animal genetic resources. Here we have some of the local, our indigenous animals. We have the frizzle. We can see the animals. Most of us are familiar with these animals. We see them moving around when we go to our villages, most especially because in the urban centers, we hardly find these animals roam about. So in September, the Federal Ministry of Livestock received a 15-year National Livestock Master Plan designed in collaboration with the International Livestock Research Institute to do what? Drive food security, promote rural prosperity, and increase national growth. Tanzania in 2018 also had this livestock plan, and that livestock plan became very effective in that country because of government participation. They enjoyed a lot of funds that enabled them to carry out a lot of research. So I pray that in Nigeria, this will not become a situation of business as usual. We'll hear it, and at some point, we do not hear it again. So what are the limitations here? We have here ethnic communal crisis. This will limit our documentation, inadequate extension services. For us to succeed as a country, to sustain livestock production, we cannot do that without our extension workers, because they are the ones that will take the information back to the producers on disease, new breeding strategies, and all the information that comes out as it concerns rearing our animals. Poor infrastructure is also another challenge. Like the Vice Chancellor said, some months back, I was trying to reduce feed and I slaughtered my birds. The same day I slaughtered large quantity of birds, there was power outage. I had to dash some people the chicken and I sold some at a loss. So these are some of the things that limit farmers from going into large-scale production because they don't want to suffer those kind of losses. So unsuccessful breeding programs too is also a major challenge, because skilled workers are not available to guide the farmers to be able to produce efficiently in this regard. And I want to also add here that last week I read an article that Nigeria has signed an agreement with Uganda to provide 200,000 tons of powdered milk to Nigeria. This is Uganda that has 14.5 million head of cattle, and Nigeria has over 20 million. Yet, Nigeria produces just 600 to 700 liters of milk, whereas Uganda produces 3.8 to 3.9 million liters of milk. That's a big question for us to ask ourselves. If Uganda, with a lower population of cattle, is going to sell milk to Nigeria, with that quantity, that means that Nigeria will be spending over 60% of income to import milk. And Nigeria consumes between 1.6 to 1.7 tons of milk, which with our cattle population, we should be able to do that. How did Uganda get to this point? Just three things. The systems are working, the leadership is working, and their priorities are set right. So I pray that in Nigeria, it is not just about saying we have the livestock sector, but the problem has always been that in Nigeria, round pegs are put in square holes. People that don't even have the knowledge about livestock production are the ones that will run the ministry. So with this, we will not be able, if we continue as business as usual, to sustain our livestock industry. My contributions. My contributions to the University of Calabar involved around teaching, research and community service. I've taught over 25 courses at both the undergraduate and postgraduate levels. My research focus has been mainly in the area of quantitative genetics with a few molecular studies. It has been an exciting experience. I've worked with all these animals: rabbits, grasscutters, broiler chicken, turkeys, goats, sheep, snail, cattle, quails, Nigerian guinea fowl, and the clam, what we refer to in Akpabio as a cup. So, my research, my PhD studies, I worked extensively on grasscutters. I wanted to look at a non-conventional livestock so that we can have a situation where people, just the way we raise chicken, we can also raise grasscutter. So, in our research, let me take the first one: reproductive performance of grasscutter does at first parity and growth performance of their F1 generation. Literature had it that we can wean grasscutters at 6-8 weeks, but I decided to wean grasscutters at 2 weeks, and I noticed that the grasscutters survived. Because when grasscutters are born, they are born fully matured. From day one, they can pick feed and begin to nibble on the feed. So that way, we can the weaning age has been greatly reduced. And because of that, I also had to look at what effect that early weaning will have on productive and reproductive performance of the offspring that were so weaned at that time. And it was discovered that there was no a negative effect of weaning age on the performance of these animals. For want of time, please permit me to. So we have here service to the university. I've served at various committees in the university, at my faculty and the department and the university at large. And for community service, I've served different organizations to work with young people, women, and the disabled on how to guide them, teach them in the different aspects of animal production. And because of my interest in young people, to have to raise them to a point where they can stand on their own, I have registered a foundation in the memory of my late father, Solomon Cares Foundation. And through this foundation, I've been able to sponsor a number of young persons through secondary and tertiary studies. And I even have graduates that have graduated. So unlocking potential. In the ever-evolving landscape of animal agriculture, the helix, the gene, environment, and phenotype, stands as a scientific compass. It reminds us that sustainable animal production is not the product of isolated interventions, but of integrated, informed, and intentional design of all aspects of animal management. One cannot be without the other. So breeders are custodians of genetic potential, interpreters of phenotypic expression, and architects of environments that nurture life. So our decision ripples across generations, shaping not only the animals we produce, but also the ecosystems we inhabit and the societies we serve. Therefore, to embrace this helix is to commit to a future where productivity does not compromise welfare, where innovation respects tradition, and where sustainability is not a slogan, but a standard. The journey ahead demands courage, collaboration, and curiosity. Nigeria is richly endowed with diverse indigenous livestock and poultry breeds, which are carriers of unique genotypes, suitably adapted to the different agroecological zones. So we are rich in Nigeria when it comes to livestock, the livestock sector. So there is need for us to do the right thing. So the potential of these animal breeds can be tapped and bred to improve upon and provide local and global food security. How? One, by balancing selection and diversity with enhanced livestock production. Genomic editing technologies must be adopted with regulatory guidelines for precise genetic modifications to introduce beneficial alleles. So when we talk about genetic manipulation, it has to be under guidelines, because the moment you talk about gene manipulation, people begin to run away from those products. So they have to be properly guided. So we must be conscious of every human activity. So everything we do, we must think about the animals. How does our activity affect our animals? And also, government initiatives planned towards transforming the livestock sector must be all-inclusive, gender-sensitive, not because I'm a woman, I'm just saying the right thing. Cutting across the different value chains and producers. So incentives must be provided to all key players who are custodians of animal genetic resources to ensure conservation, which means that government can go as far as providing little incentives to our local farmers that have these animals. Tell them, if you raise this animal well, at the end of every month we'll give you something. We will see that we will begin to gather our animal populations and then improve these animals to serve the purpose. At this point, I want to say, vast opportunities abound in the animal production sector for teaching, research, and investment. That has translated to increased production and improved animal products. The University of Calabar farm lies desolate, buried with potential, despite the intellectual resources that abound in the Department of Animal Science. As part of the institution's core values, which is teaching and research, our farm is large enough to serve as a research hub where knowledge from numerous researches conducted can be shared and utilized by captains of industries. Let the livestock transformation plan be replicated here in Unical to feed the university community and its environs. Finally, to my colleagues, we are the breeders, the students are the genes, encapsulated in phenotypes, and the University of Calabar is the environment. May we do our best within the ethics of this noble profession to improve these traits and release them into various environments where they will thrive and excel as worthy ambassadors of this great institution. Acknowledgements. I wouldn't get this far without the help of God and without a good number of persons. So I need to acknowledge those that have helped me to get to this point. I stand today in deep reverence and gratitude to the King of Glory, the Almighty God, who has been exceedingly merciful and gracious unto me. My life is a testament of God's unmerited favor. I have scaled over this hurdle today only because God was with me. I am indeed a signature of God's grace because I constantly see his hands in all I do, and I am forever grateful to God who makes all things beautiful in his own time. Jehovah, I owe you my life, and you have blessed me with, and all you have blessed me with. The success of this day would be incomplete if I fail to acknowledge all who have been part of my academic journey. From the depth of my heart, I appreciate the unflinching sacrifices of my parents, Professor Solomon John Ekwere of blessed memory, and Deaconess Glory Solomon Ekwere, who both nurtured me in character and learning. From both of you, I was taught the virtues of hard work, discipline, perseverance, entrepreneurial skills, and devotion to God. Daddy, you were my pillar of strength and cheerleader. I can only imagine the joy in heaven today because your girl has done it again. I remain forever grateful. You were the best father any child could have. And I did this today for you, Daddy, and myself. To my beloved mother, your prayers and dedicated guidance have placed me on the pedestal of success. My faith in God is unwavering because I was raised by a woman who understood her role as a mother. My achievements in life has been possible because I was blessed and raised by a praying mother. Thank you, Mommy. You are priceless. I sincerely appreciate the Vice Chancellor, Professor Affiong Joseph, who taught us structure and bonding. For the opportunity to present this inaugural lecture, being the second on your assumption of office, I pray for God's guidance all through your tenure as VC of this citadel of learning, that we will flourish in all spheres. I appreciate Professor Ivara Ejemotesu, in whose tenure as Vice Chancellor I was employed. Professor Zana Akpabio, it was in your tenure I was appointed Head of Department. And Professor Florence Banko-Obi, under whom I completed my tenure as Head of Department and was elevated to the rank of Professor. I am forever grateful to my supervisors and academic fathers, late Professor Basioko Nasuko of blessed memory, and Professor Sylvester Enibe. Your dedication and guidance brought excellence to my studies and career. I wish Professor Asuko was here today to be part of this event. In his usual way, he would not have failed to say, my friend, you have tried. I acknowledge and appreciate the Dean of Faculty of Agriculture, Professor Anthony Ineji, and all past deans of the faculty. Your individual contributions sustain the faculty and have equipped me to rise through the ranks of the academic ladder. I appreciate Professor Agunobi, Professor Moren, and Professor Isika. All my colleagues in the Department of Animal Science, I say thank you. Our Head of Department, Head of Animal Breeding Units, Professor Basioko, our HOD, Professor Favor Abba, I say thank you. And to all my colleagues there. To the staff of Faculty of Agriculture, I say thank you for your friendship and support spanning over 2 decades. I appreciate the following academic giants in the animal science profession who have played significant roles in shaping me through this career. Professor S.I. Umeje, from my early years, you have been a consistent guide. Professor Ike Obi and Professor Placid Njoku. And I especially appreciate Emerita Professor Ekanam Ipi Braid. You are my role model. I am inspired by you to give the best in this teaching profession. An unknown author wrote, and I quote, "A good education can change anyone. A good teacher can change everything." I appreciate all my teachers at all levels of schooling. Professor Isen, who is not here today because he was called off for an assignment yesterday. His class was a jolly class, where he pronounced mature as mature and you as ewe. So this got us to be very interested in his lectures. To Professor Marian Solomon, you are my role model. For in you, I found more than a teacher. Thank you for your advice, love, and support. I thank very profoundly Professor Basi Brokon, who always tells me, this one too will pass. Sir, today, this one has passed. To all my teachers who have transcended to the great beyond, I respectfully acknowledge and appreciate the role you all played in my various levels of schooling. I sincerely appreciate Professor A.A. Ayuk for the role you have played in my life and family. You take delight in the rising of others, and you advise from the place of truth, no matter how it makes me feel. Presenting this inaugural lecture today has been made possible because of your encouragement. Today, the core group circle is complete. Thank you very much, sir. Professor Oluwatosin Kennedy, you are a friend in need, indeed, and a trusted partner in progress. For in you, I find a pillar of strength, through trials, and a heart that truly rejoices in my victories. God bless you. Dr. Pokunefio, thank you for your friendship. Professor Susanna Ohen, thank you for your friendship. I admire your strength. To all my friends, as they are listed there, I appreciate all my students from when I first started, when I didn't even know I was going to become a teacher in Army Day Secondary School. I appreciate all of them. I appreciate my supervisors who are now my colleagues, Dr. Ayuba Dauda, Mr. Lilu Abdurrahman. Thank you for taking the baton. I am greatly encouraged. Dr. Kevin Obok, I am proud of your achievements and appreciate your friendship. I say it boldly from a heart filled with gratitude. You all are my crowning lights. Truly, great friends are hard to find. So I appreciate all my friends from secondary school. I appreciate my classmates, Agricolite class of 98. I appreciate you all for making our time to be here. To my citation reader, Dr. Emmanuel Lefa, having you as a friend for over 30 years is a testament to the fact that we attract who we are. To all of you, I say thank you. And I will not be wrong if I say we will still be friends in heaven. In this journey, our paths crossed. I want to appreciate my late father's friends, Professor Cyril Mokwenye, Chief Kenneth Ebila, Dr. Sima Umo, Elder Benjamin Udobia, and Engineer Francis Ilesoni. Years after my dad passed, you all have still kept the line of friendship open. God bless you all. I appreciate our family, friends. I thank members of our Akpabio community for their immense support over the years. I stand here today as a proud indigene of Akpabio State and a daughter of Ibionibo local government to say, God bless you all. I thank everyone from my community. I thank my church under the leadership of Pastor Basi and my to lead them. Every member of my church, I say thank you. I thank my partners in the Lord's Vineyard, Blessing OBJ, Uweme Kereti, Kana Umo, Ifremi Demidio, Achibo Ogo, and Itabasi. Working with you all makes serving God very interesting. God bless you all. I thank my children. I thank my friends from all over the world. Today has been made possible largely because of your support. God bless you all. I thank my children. There are very many. I have a lot of children. I thank every one of them. I thank my family, paternal and maternal family. They are here. Two-farm engineer Edero Cole, late, but his wife is watching. Engineer Koko Edemia, Mr. Victor Asuko Edem, Madam Eta Asuko Edem, Mr. Martins Okulaja, my grandmother, who is 92 years. I thank you. I thank my cousins, my uncles, and my aunties. I thank all my in-laws. I appreciate my nieces and nephews, Edidion, Benjamin, Jonathan, Zara, Zamora, Zuriel, Enomfon, and Ekemini. I love you all. I thank my siblings and their spouses, Dr. Zubike Kwere and Edu, Neka and Benjamin Etubuno, Asubo and Mercy Kwere, Mrs. Emma Teko. Thank you for your love and support. For you all complete me. To my jewels of inestimable value, my prayer partners and source of inspiration, Solomon Ubongabasi, Joseph Edith Henry, Joseph David, and Mabel. I love you wholeheartedly. Nothing would ever take your places in my heart. You are my spark. God bless you. Finally, to the love of my life, my crown, advisor, truest friend, prayer partner, and priest, Elder Joseph Henry. You are a great gift to me. I thank you for your support and love and the enabling environment you have always provided for me to excel. We have been through many things in our 19 years together, and in all we have prevailed because Jesus is our rock and foundation. Thank you for everything you have done, even in the preparation of these slides, and keep doing for me. Today, I reaffirm my unshakable love for you. God bless and honor you. And to everyone here, I say thank you, and thank you.
May we all be seated, please. Thank you very much, ma'am. God bless you. Very interesting lecture and very educative also. I was wondering what we're going to hear about the animals from Faculty of Agri. I thought maybe we're going to go back to wisdom from the lower. All the students who were here, wisdom from the lower. Very good. The inaugural lecture is helping us. But today, I have additional knowledge. Thank you very much. When I grow up, I will go into agriculture and study in faculty, so I will be a professor like you. Please, let's celebrate her again. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me one more time to invite the Vice Chancellor and Chairman of this occasion, Professor Affiong, to step forward for presentation of the lecture notes by the inaugural lecturer and appreciation of the lecturer by exchange of memento.
Professor Affiong Joseph Henry. She has not removed Equere when she's sending me a message. So I'm bringing it from my mind. Professor Affiong Joseph Henry, may I present to you a memento from the University of Calabar in honor of your contribution to knowledge and the development of the University of Calabar on the day December 10, 2025, during the 154th Inaugural Lecture. Congratulations, and this is just the beginning, not the end of your receipt. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my VC. Let me at this point invite the Chairman, Committee of Deans, Professor Enan Uda, to give a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Prof. Affiong, for that beautiful delivery. we've seen how you explain the sustainability of animal breeding from the genetic code, the environment, and is mainstream in the phenotype. And you have also been able to show us that sometimes inbreeding and outbreeding can be useful depending on the environment and the genetic code of the animal. I really appreciate that. What I'm taking home is that I did not know that there is a Fulani cow in the Budali that produces only 8 to 11 siblings in his own lifetime. That's very short. Then I will go to rabbit that will give me plenty protein. Thank you very much. See that we learn every day. As we come to each inaugural lecture, we learn something. Thank you very much. We really appreciate that time you spend in giving us this very interesting intellectual feast. On that note, I want to thank the Vice Chancellor for finding time to be here and encouraging all of us. Your presence here has encouraged everyone to be here. Thank you very much. We look forward to more of this. I want to also appreciate the two DVCs who are here, Professor Tony Young and Professor Carfor. The librarian, thank you for coming. We really appreciate you. We also want to appreciate the Provost College of Education, Professor Akpabio, the Registrar, University of Uyo, the council member that is there, Professor Inaja, the inaugural lecturer, Dean, and his HOD, and all the deans who are present here, all the professors, and all those who are robed, we are beautifully adored. We also want to come to those who are well-dressed members of the inaugural lecturers, church members. I can see you are all wearing green. That means that the animals will see enough green grass to eat. And it's symbolic. Your color is symbolic. It shows the title of the inaugural lecturer, because we want to sustain the animals so that we can feed ourselves. You notice that the growth rate of our population is ever increasing. The statistics shows that in 50 years or so, 2050, we may double our population. Thank you for reflecting the moment with your colors. Thank you. I also want to thank the Development Division, the Information Unit, and the Director of the H&E, and also the VC Entourage, and everyone who came. Now let me turn attention to the inaugural lecturer's family. I like the color. Sir, you've seen that she has told you everything. And it's because of the leverage you gave to her. And that's what she has achieved now. And so henceforth, sometimes you may also have, when she's very busy, you can also enter the kitchen and do things for her. And you look like one who can do that. Thank you very much for encouraging her. And that's why she has succeeded. I want to thank everyone that we have our last inaugural lecture for the year next week, and that the Information Unit will provide a title. Thank you very much for coming. God bless all of you.
As we come to the end of this exercise, permit me once again to call on the Vice Chancellor and Chairman of this occasion to make his closing remarks.
the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Research Engages, the Registrar, the Chairman Committee of Deans, past Vice Chancellors here present, members of the Governing Council here, provosts of colleges, College of Education, idea is here, the deans, professors, and members of Senate here present, the inaugural lecturers, family, starting with Chief Henry himself, you are welcome, and the children, the church that has come to support one of theirs here, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you first for making our time to be here in this 154th Inaugural Lecture. I learned a lot. Maybe I'm biased because I have a passion for animal breeding, and maybe because I was also raised by a father who was an agriculturist. But I want to say that there's a lot we can take home from this inaugural lecture. Professor Mrs. Henry has taken us through the terrain of animal breeding. And I think he has also reminded us of the rapid population growth in Nigeria. And that in no distant future, we will be number 3 in the world. We are currently at about 230 million. And I can tell you, if you are privileged to be eating protein, remaining a very high fraction of these 230 million cannot afford protein. Of course, the animal protein we are talking about. And so if you look at what will happen in the next 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, as we march on, if something is not done to intervene, where much talk about food security is translated to action, then we are likely going to have a serious crisis at hand. Most of the very highly populated countries of this world saw some of these, they saw this trend coming, and they have arrested it. Despite the population in China, we don't hear about food scarcity. Despite the population in India, we don't hear about lack of protein, because it has become something virtually all the household have taken up to address. But I think that it's an opportunity for us all to learn that this big grammar, the gene, environment, and phenotype are just the basic things that we can appreciate. If if you see an animal that is well fed, it starts by the color of the hair, it starts by the physical look, and also how agile the animal is. So let's reduce that grammar to that basis, and all of us can appreciate that this is a good breed. So how do we multiply this breed so that we can have even those that are more active, that grow well, that can produce milk if they are for milk, if they are for meat, that can give us sizable portion of meat. So we have to take into consideration the gene, the trait, the family trait. If you see a very huge goat, even though I don't like the word dwarf goat for Nigerian goat and dwarf goat for the West African, because it looks like they cannot grow. There have seen some that have grown beyond this dwarf status. So we can address some of these by understanding these three variables: the environment, the phenotype, and the gene. And some of these are things we can control. So when we set our bush on fire, what we are doing invariably is to destroy our environment and disturb the ecosystem. And indirectly, our animals will suffer. And this is still a very common practice all over Nigeria. So as we are leaving this lecture today, let us be the advocates of those discouraging setting bush on fire and our farmland on fire. So the topic dwells extensively on sustainable animal production. So it is not just about raising animals for the fun of it, for hobby, but how do we breed these animals so that we will have a sustainable supply of all the things we can get from animals, from meat to milk to every other things we can get from the animal. Some of them serve as raw material for some of our industries. So this requires the system working. And the system means that we need to get some of our public utility rights, like light, where we talk about preservation to minimize loss, and also good roads, where we can bring some of these animals down to the city, or where they can be sold in exchange for other things. And also talks about leaders. To get anything right, we need leaders. So the leaders we are talking about here is not only the leaders in the Aso Rock. We are all leaders. And I want to bring in the issue of the unical farms. So my colleagues in Faculty of Agri, this time you are the leader. And therefore I will challenge you, and I will challenge those in the Institute of Oceanography. You have a low-hanging fruit in front of you. It's not just enough to talk about unical farm. So many years ago, that farm was not only supplying the chicken, the egg we were eating as undergraduate students in these campus, but was also supplying people living in town with eggs and protein. So it's a challenge to you, and therefore I am putting it to you, the leaders in Faculty of Agri, how do we turn around the unical farm? So when you are ready for this discussion, I am ready to engage. priority right. And I believe that if we are able to set our priority right, we will be able to get that unical farm back to what it used to be. But I think one of the important take-home for us is, let us mind the kind of activities that we indulge as people. If we really want to save this nation from a disaster that is looming, I want to again remind all of us that a very significant fraction of our population cannot afford meat. So let us see this as something we are going to contribute to the development of our state. Let's start from Cross River State first. How do we boost the GDP of Cross River State through animal production? This time it's not only the Faculty of Agriculture, but for all of us. One thing the inaugural lecturer didn't say much about is that our late father had a big farm in their village. He was a geologist. But there was a time he was supplying most of us here in Calabar with pork meat and other proteins. And from my interaction with our late father, I also delved into animal production. But don't start it when you are not ready to commit all your time to it. That's my advice to you, personal, from experience. Because if you do it, you will be frustrated out of business. And when you are ready, I think it's a good business. So I thank you all for coming to listen. But when we go home, let's think about this. How do we solve the impending danger of lack of protein to a significant fraction of our population? And this is increasing as the year goes by. In the next 10 years, the situation we are facing will be worse than what we are presently seeing. And please note that you can do it. You can change this situation if we are also playing a role in controlling some of the factors we can control: the environment, the gene. So if you need expert advice from the expert, I think Professor Affiong Henry has volunteered to do that. Thank you for listening and welcome.
Thank you so much. I think the Vice Chancellor deserves another round of applause. Thank you so much, sir. We have gradually come to the end of the 154th Inaugural Lecture. Like I said, today was the last day. Please, it is not the last. We'll have another one next week, Wednesday, same time, same venue. And the lecturer is from the Department of Geography and Environmental Science. He is Professor Dr. Engineer Ina Eten Okun. Can we put our hands together for him? Yeah. So please, we will be gathering like the same time. His topic says tokenism of pedal to people, the bicyclist as king. So we'll be gathering like that. Before I carry on, somebody just walked in, head of service, Cross River State, and he's no other person than Barrister Rob Kun. Can we put our hands together for you? Welcome, sir. The registrar has actually asked me to remind all of us as regards tomorrow's event, the registry day, an annual event. Tomorrow is going to be the third annual event we'll be having tomorrow, and to take place here by 10 o'clock in the morning. She says hold-up time 9:30 a.m. Our dear Vice Chancellor will be here to grace the occasion as the chairman and chief host tomorrow. And as you can see, the University of Uyo registrar is already present. She's here in our midst. She's no other person than Mrs. Blossom Okurie. Can we celebrate her? She's already here. She's one of the lecturers for tomorrow's event. So please, we appeal that we come out en masse to ensure that this event will be a success. She's already ready. Her lecture is on ground to bombard us tomorrow. So ensure that you're here. Make sure you're here by 9:30 as God grants us grace. Thank you so much. May I please request members of the high table to please go down for a group photograph. The first segment will be strictly principal officers, the members of the high table. Then the second one will be with the immediate family, the husband and the children. Every other photograph will be outside the Please, nobody is expected to leave the hall. The Vice Chancellor is still here. Thank you so much. We will end in a grand style. Please do not leave the hall. Thank you so much. Please don't leave the hall. We will end this lecture formally. Thank you. Please. Thank you so much. Can we please rise? Please remain where you are. Can we please rise? As we take the University of Calabar song. Please do not move. Thank you. Leave the broad expanse of Nigeria's sky, send to school with a vision bright, ever holding the banner of knowledge high. We'll go forward by wisdom's might. All hail to thee, our master. We have come from near and far to unite in Calabar. We'll work to build session commences immediately. Please can we clear the aisle? Thank you so much. Remain where you are. Thank you.
Recording stopped.